What is food going to look like in 20 years from now? And will there still be real food? Find out the details here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. Come follow me right here over on Instagram. I'm on Jimmy Rants is the username. Go look it up. And we do go live Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Jimmy Rants Instagram feed. We also simulcast over here on my Facebook page, as well as over on Twitch. Thank you all for being here today. If you missed the live, you can watch it on the replay over here on the Jimmy Rants Instagram page. And it will be on IGTV just as soon as this is over. It goes right up there within minutes after the show is over. So go check it out on replay if you missed the live. You can also watch the replay over on Twitch. Just download the Twitch app, follow Jimmy Rants, and you can either watch the show live or watch it on the replay. This week only, it's not up on YouTube because YouTube decided to ban me for a week for trying to post a video they did not want me to post. And so if you're used to watching the replay on YouTube, you can't do it until Saturday. Saturday, I will upload all the brand new videos on Saturday so you can see them then. But you can check out other content on the YouTube channel, like my podcast that will be airing this week, which we'll tell you about tomorrow and Thursday. And then finally, pop on over to the official website. It is JimmyRants.com, and there's where you can see all the past episodes. No matter what happens with all this censorship stuff, Jimmy's always going to be at JimmyRants.com. Okay, you guys, today's topic of Jimmy Rants is really, really fascinating to me, because those of us that have been steeped in the real food movement, I've been at it for over a decade and a half, we've noticed little things here and there that are pushing us further and further away from real food. And so it begs the question, what is the food supply going to look like in the future? And we're not talking about 100 years from now or even 15 years from now. What's it going to look like in, say, the year 2038? Well, I have an article that actually was originally written way back in 2018. So 3 years ago, they wanted to see what food, and it's just theorized, but they wanted to kind of predict where they think food is going to be by the year 2038. And I definitely want to get to that here in just a moment. But there are some interesting articles that are associated with this that I think will push us towards that future in food. And this first one is from marketwatch.com. Bill Gates is now the largest farmland owner in America. Did you know that when nobody was paying attention, Bill Gates bought up a whole bunch of farmland in the United States? He may no longer be the richest man. I think he's number 3 on the list now, but he can claim the new title. Bill Gates is now America's farmland king. He became the largest owner of farmland in the United States by quietly buying up massive plots across the country. His portfolio comprises almost 250,000 acres of farmland and nearly 27,000 acres of land across 19 states. And so the biggest chunks of the land holdings are in Louisiana and Arkansas. He owns 69,000 acres in Louisiana, 48,000 acres in Arkansas. He also owns 16,000 acres in his home state of Washington, including a 14,500 acre tract in a region that was purchased for nearly $171 million. And so it's uncertain why Gates has invested so much in farmland or how they will be used. And all the representatives did not get back in time for the story to explain why. Well, let me kind of tie in Bill Gates to what we're going to talk about here today, because the future of food is definitely in the hands of billionaire investors. And I've been talking a lot about this, you guys. We have so many special interests involved in trying to affect the food that ends up on your dinner table. And we know a lot of these fake meat companies, the whole Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, all of those kinds of things, all of those are being propped up by billionaire investors. And we've even had the Impossible Foods guy, the CEO, come out blatantly and say, oh, our goal is to eradicate all meat consumption by the year 2035. And so he thinks they're going to get rid of meat in our diet because it's unhealthy, it's going to harm us, all the things I've talked about forever. And so I think what Bill Gates is up to is buy up the farmland and control the food and have more places to grow the key ingredients that go into these plant-based burgers and other things in the food supply. And they don't care about your health. I'm going to tell you that right now. There ain't a darn bit of anything great about what they're doing. Just wanted you to be aware of this, because this is something that's happening, that with all the chaos of everything happening in the world, maybe you didn't know Bill Gates bought up a whole bunch of farmland and he's the biggest farmer in America now, right? If you're just joining us, we are talking about what the future of food will look like. And I put food in quotations by design because some of this stuff I would not describe as food, as you will see in this article I'm going to read here in a minute. But I was just talking about how Bill Gates has now become the biggest farmer in America, owning 250,000 acres of farmland all across America. I have another story here about a new study, and all of this lays the groundwork for what the future food supply will look like. Headline out of The Guardian: organic meat production just as bad for the climate. According to a new study, analysis found the lowest impact meat was still far more damaging than the worst plant foods. So they are laying the groundwork, you guys, that even the best organic, grass-fed, grass-finished types of foods still not good enough, and they're putting it under the guise of it's harming the planet. And it won't take much for laws to be put into place and claims about greenhouse gas emissions and needing to reduce them to make things happen. And so they're vilifying it. They're already looking at implementing policies of meat taxes to reflect the true cost of the food. They're going to basically tax meat out of the market. It would rise the price of meat by upwards of 40% when they do this. Organic meat would also go up around 25%. Conventional milk will rise by about a third in cost for shoppers. Organic milk by about a fifth. And so they are doing all they can to make real food look bad. And remember, billionaire buys up 250,000 acres. Bill Gates. It's all interconnected. Just laying the groundwork for what I'm talking about here today. So actually in 2018, there were 2 articles written in this Fast Company magazine. So fastcompany.com. This first one was written in January, and the second one was written in the month of April. So let's get to the January one. And all of this is about the future of food and what we'll be consuming in the next 20 years. And then I asked the question, will real food die? And you might be interested in knowing and seeing, as I'm reading through this, some of the things that they predicted will happen 20 years from now. We're already seeing some of the groundwork for it happen even now. All right, so this headline: imagine a better future of food now, or be shocked by what we get. We're making the argument that we need to think about fantastic possibilities for the future of how we eat. After all, it's better to be scared by fiction than to be harmed by fact. Most of us have generally stopped bothering to imagine new futures of food. Instead, we let others do the imagination often optimizing for a limited set of values like efficiency, productivity, and financial return. As a result, our food system has become a well-oiled machine, producing monoculture cash crops and billions of animals with the industrial efficiency one would expect in a factory, not in a farm. And by the way, like a lot of these plant-based advocates that hate the meat production, guess what? A lot of us that believe in real food, we also abhor meat production. This has always been the fascinating thing to me. When I was in the paleo community a decade ago, they were always talking about we need to be more sustainable in the farming. We need to, have better practices with the ruminants and all of that. Like that was a basic tenet. And that's all that they're asking for here is let's stop the whole factory farm system. Let's stop the whole industrialized crops, namely grains and soy, corn, all of these things. We agree with them on all of that. And so there is a middle ground between having all of this industrialized food and then thinking that you have to go all plant-based, right? There is a middle ground there. Our food has become fast, filled with addictive sugars and empty calories, instead of healthy or humane. This gloomy picture does not have to be our reality in the future. The future is not like a sunrise, something we wake up to every morning with regularity. There are many futures, each of which is full of possibility and opportunity, none of which are fate. And it's critical to think through the possible futures so we can help shape them intentionally. I hope that as we move forward and as we have conversations about what food will look like in the future, that we don't fall into the trap of, well, we have new technology that ... you fill in the blank. Because it seems to me every time new technology comes around, I remember a few years ago they were growing meat in a lab. So they'd have little cells of meat and then they would create meat in a lab. And I remember when they made the first burger that was made out of all cell lab grown meat, somebody ate it and it was like a big to-do made about it. Oh my gosh, they had the first burger made in a lab out of cells. And it's like, okay, but like, what's your point? Why are we doing that? Not all of the images are optimistic or utopian. The future can be scary, dark, and dangerous. It's better to be surprised by a simulation than blindsided by reality. And we need to take back the power of imagining the future food system. So this person writing this article, I don't see their name, but we need to take it back using the team at the Food Futures Lab at the Institute for the Future. That's a real thing. It is a think tank in Palo Alto, California. They created 6 images from the future of food to help provoke and inspire this type of thinking. They include blenders. Listen to some of these ideas for future food. Blenders that tweet fake food safety scandals in a self-shopping kitchen. A Pokemon Go-like game for achieving microbiome diversity in your diet. Lunchabios, a do-it-yourself school lunch kit for kids to culture their own cheese using synthetic biology, and more. That's kind of weird, some of that stuff. Mike Lee of the Future Market also designs images of possibility, food products that don't yet exist, but may in the not too distant future. He recently created this thing called Jia Rao Canting, a Chinese restaurant imagined in the year 2038. Upon first glance, the menu doesn't appear out of the ordinary, but when you look a lot closer at it, you see that it has cultured meat on the menu. Meat grown from animal cells outside of an animal. It's delivered with drones and they accept Bitcoin. Jia Rao may be delivering cultured meat to your doorstep with drones sooner than 2038 because of the imagination here. Shojin Meat, a citizen project in Japan, has also created images of Mars colonists growing protein and high-rise algae farms in the year 2203. So they're thinking way ahead about the future of food. Another developed a series of artifacts called Animals Doing Capitalism, which includes a countertop meat extruder that cultures bacon, produces fat profits for living pigs who own their own IP to a cell phone. When you imagine the future of food, what comes to mind? Some of that stuff's crazy, right? Really crazy. Perhaps you see vast networks of shipping containers filled with vertical hydroponic farms or fully autonomous farms, glowing greens with purple LED lights. Maybe you see climate refugees building resilience through their ability to carry their food rituals and stories with them wherever they go. Or you might see a kitchen cabinet full of pills, each one a unique, ready for quick and efficient consumption. Now, the pill thing is interesting to me. So, if the future of food is in a pill, who gets enjoyment out of pill? Now, if we take the enjoyment out of food and only make it about the nutrition that you get, I suppose if you only see it as fuel and only see it as nutrients, that taking a pill takes the guesswork out of it. But part of the enjoyment of the human experience is, I don't know, digesting and enjoying your food, not taking it in a pill form. That's kind of weird to me. Our images of the future often become the reality, though. In fact, portrayals of the future of food from just a few decades ago are now surprisingly familiar. Ubiquitous features of modern foodscape like meal replacements, fake meat, genetic modification were once figments of our imagination. Remember the Jetsons? And they pushed a little button, make me a hot fudge sundae. Out comes a hot fudge sundae. Is that kind of come? But like, how do they do that? Like, is that going to be food or is that going to be a chemical concoction? I urge you to continue imagining possible futures of food, identify which futures best optimize the values you hold, and then take the steps necessary to build those futures. We all have agency in turning the possible into the actual. Once you identify what you want the future to look like, make it happen, change your behavior, blah, 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 blah. All right, so imagining the future of food should not be limited to those who work at think tanks or consulting firms. Everyone needs to engage in this exercise and feel empowered. After all, the future of food needs us as much as we need it. Some people may hear this discussion of the future of food and think, hey, the food that we have available today, the food that I'm eating in a real food lifestyle that nourishes my ketogenic, carnivore, paleo, real food body, is pretty good. What do you mean, imagine the food of the future? Just what we're doing today, bring it up to date. Like, I think this is where we got into trouble in the early part of the 20th century when we when we had the Industrial Revolution at the turn of the previous century before that. And the Industrial Revolution brought along automation, and that's when we got into the processing of a lot of food. So their imagination of a food for the future did not turn out well. So let's stop pretending to play God here and thinking that real whole foods that our grandfathers and forefathers in this country and around the world and cultures around the world, it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, a lot of the chronic diseases that we live with today are a direct result of us trying to rethink the future of food, thinking we can do better than Mother Nature and God. And at the end of the day, I still want my chickens. I still want to have chickens that will go, bark, 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 and now comes an egg. Like, that's how it works. Or go hunting for your food. They want to eradicate that. I think about like the future of food as well, and how hunting actually keeps the wild game under control, the population. Otherwise it gets out of control and then they overtake where humans live. What happens if we do eradicate kind of animal consumption. It won't ever happen, but if they try to move us in that direction, what are they going to do with all the extra animals? Oh, well, we can feed them too. No, they'll overtake us. The reason hunting exists is to keep that population under control, but they never talk about that aspect of things. So if you joined us late, yes, we are talking about the future of food. What will the foods look like? Even as short as like 17, 18 years from now, we're going to have a food reality. And I'm positing a theory that they're trying to eradicate, for the most part, real food from our culture. And they're trying to reimagine what food will be like in the future. So now we're going to get to the main article that I printed out. It's from Fast Company. And again, this was written in 2018. So they had some pretty interesting imagination in 2018. See if any of it looks familiar already within the food supply. So it's the year 2038. Here's how we'll eat in the future. A science fiction look at the next 2 decades of food development, robot farmers to 3D printed meals. Yeah, that's a trip. The whole 3D printed meals. To government monitoring of your daily calorie intake. Yes, we're all wearing these little devices now. Watches and rings and all kinds of things. There'll be stuff and maybe something implanted into us where they can see exactly how much you've eaten, what you've eaten. It's kind of scary. It's the year 2038. The word flavor has fallen into disuse. Sugar is now the new cigarette, and we've managed to replace salt with plant matter. We live in a society in which we eat fruit grown using genetics. We drink synthetic wine, scrambled eggs that don't come from chickens, grilled meat that doesn't come from an animal, and roasted fish that never saw the sea. Stop. Eggs, meat, fish. Did you see what they did with all 3 of those? And even the wine. They're fake. They got rid of real food. Is that the future we're imagining? And if they're not made from chickens, animals, and fish, what are they made from? And is that going to keep us nourished? Is that going to keep us healthy? Is that going to keep future generations going? I think we're playing God with the food supply if we think we can eliminate animal foods from the diet. Guys, they are pulling out all the stops to make that happen. And lest you forget, the person that just got elected as the Vice President of the United States of America getting sworn in tomorrow, she has said that she's all in favor of putting in measures that would eliminate meat from your diet. This could be a lot quicker than 2038 if certain things fall into place. So just be aware of that. Was this what we had in mind when we started seeking transparency, traceability, and sustainability in the food system many years ago? About a decade ago, we lived through an agricultural bottleneck caused by warm temperatures that caused plagues and diseases, which severely compromised food sources that we were cultivating and consuming. And by the end, 3/4 of the world's food was derived from just 12 plant and 5 animal species. We learned from this mistake and started to embrace biodiversity. We started growing meat in labs and put robotics into farms. But the technological advances that have made for clean, sustainable food has also created some horrifying scenarios. Listen to some of these scenarios that have happened. Traditional farmers were left with no choice but to reinvent themselves, although few had the capacity to adapt to this new kind of agriculture. Most of them were eliminated because of robotics. Vegetables like cauliflower, cabbage, and broccoli have seen soaring prices because there's a lack of workers to harvest them. Robots will cut the costs by 40%. And I think the use of robots in traditional agriculture could be very helpful. the idea that all of that has to be human, I think is a little bit misguided. Now, could there be subsidies to help some of those farmers for the sake of the future of food? Absolutely. That's something that could be worked out. Agriculture is now mostly in the hands of the younger generation. 70% of them are college graduates, and they refer to themselves as urban farmer scientists. They grow all kinds of plants in containers placed throughout cities using efficient hydroponic setups and the latest technology to narrow the gap between citizens and their food. Farms are now located in cities and can be readily visited, but they now resemble an Apple store more than a traditional farmstead. I remember many years ago reading a news story on, I think it was Keto Talk or Low Carb Conversations, one of my old podcasts. And they were talking about having an office building in the middle of a city. And literally it's just this big, humongous greenhouse, and you grow all kinds of food. Each floor had a different food group on it. And you let the sun come in, you got all of it that way. It had a little watering system. It was kind of cool the way all that was set up. Is that the future of food? Is that what we see happening? Farms are now located in cities and can be readily visited. In addition to this technology, the fields that remain for cultivation become sites for regenerative agriculture practices, a series of steps beyond what is required to get the organic label, and which could contribute to climate change by locking carbon in the ground. So let's stop on the climate change thing. This is the argument for the elimination of animal foods. Every time they talk about why meat is bad, they always point to, well, it contributes negatively to climate change. That's not exactly true. If you look into regenerative farming, and I highly recommend that you do, animals, ruminants especially, are responsible for renewing land and helping to regenerate that land over and over and over again. In the meantime, it becomes a recyclable feeding trough, so to speak, for these cows and other animals to live on, and it just regenerates. And in fact, when they have put cows on desolate land that they thought was dead, within a few months, the grass started growing back. Like, this is a thing. This is real. Go look it up. And I'll encourage you to go look up a video. It was a TED Talk on YouTube. You can go watch it. Alan Savory. I think I've talked about him before. Savory. Go look up Alan Savory TED Talk over on YouTube. And he talks about this very thing, that they put cows on this desolate land, and within a few months, it's just this lush green. It grows back because they feed into the system, and then the system grows, and then they eat that food that then becomes regenerative, and it's a beautiful thing. And yeah, Ketogenic Pharmacist says go watch the Sacred Cow documentary. Rob Wolf was a part of that documentary and book as well. So we live in an age of ultra personalization, but at the same time, we lack privacy. All of our nutrition follows a plan. There is practically no freedom of choice. The initial trigger was China's pilot program based on the launch of its big data and artificial intelligence system. It assigned a rating to each Chinese citizen, what they call the social credit plan. Once Chinese businesses entered the food market en masse, they applied their technology and control model throughout the world. The focus on climate change and food safety led the European Union to create a kind of food police. This organization uses technology and the ongoing carbon footprint left by each citizen to trace all the things that we eat and then monitor our level of food waste. And the sum of this comes up in what's called a CFS, Citizen Food Score. You want to be tracked? You want to kind of know what your carbon footprint is about the foods that you're eating? Who gets to decide what a carbon footprint is of your food? That's going to be a problem moving into the future. As we look at the future of food, is it going to be determinate on somebody tracking every little thing you put in your mouth? That's a scary proposition. They'll be able to analyze everything from the sandwich you take out of a vending machine, which they say has 1441 grams of CO2 equivalent, equal to emissions of driving a car for 10 miles, to your overall eating habits. This means that when you try to use your fingerprint on a vending machine, sometimes it won't let you grab the food you want to get because it would exceed your CFS, the Citizen Food Score. And it won't let you eat more than the necessary amount of ingested calories for that day. Are you liking the future of food? Because it looks like it's going to take away some of your choice. And if you think all of this is preposterous, think about how fast the technology has gone from 2001 to 2021. How much further along are we now than we were then? That's what we're talking about between now and what they're writing about for the future. It's possible. An algorithm calculates your level of consumption and the waste you generate without needing to check the bags in your garbage containers, simply based on what you buy at the supermarket, the number of people in the household, their consumption and their habits. This is then used to impose significant fines when there's a heavy amount of waste detected. Wow. So the American diet today, of a typical standard American diet, has a lot of waste. Think about all the waste in food and then packaging of food, and oh my gosh, it's just atrocious. Think about the typical like keto or carnivore person. Like, what's our waste? We don't waste much at all. Eat the whole steak, eat all the eggs, have a little bit of cracked egg shells, but what's the waste? It's going to be interesting. We have ended obesity by the year 2038. Yeah, how did that work? But we're still analyzing the health effects of new food products that come out of a lab. As a preventative measure, we now have this thing called the Food Consumption Tax Agency, which analyzes the way we eat by means of a digital implant or a tattoo on your body, depending on the category. So they can analyze what you eat and tax you on the consumption that you eat based on what you eat. So I'm assuming they're going to tax things like meat the most because they think it's the most unhealthy. Remember at the beginning they said sugar is now the new cigarette. Are you getting scared yet that this could happen in the future? This is kind of crazy. The government makes everyone ingest an edible nano robot every 6 months as a means of assessing your food risk on your health and your environment. Insurance companies start to offer policies with premiums that will vary according to the data from this nano robot put in your body. Thanks to those implants, they're able to track everything in your body in real time. 20 years from now, guys, this is what they're dreaming up. Kitchens have also completely changed. We now have bioreactors in our kitchens, together with a whole series of smart cooking devices that do not simply manipulate or process food, but can prepare any dish or recipe you want. I suppose that's the Jetsons thing. Hit a little button and out comes the food you want. We've gone from having urban gardens at home to robotic greenhouses that will produce food at a very high speed, 500 times faster than if we grew it from soil. We even have the ability to produce hybrid foods. And getting back to the Jetsons, we can now teletransport food as well. See, we won't need DoorDash and Uber Eats anymore. They'll just teletransport it from a restaurant. The method of transportation that brought meals into our homes went from motorcycle, bicycle, robot, broadband connection. Instead of sending the food, we send the data for the food. We can acquire recipes, and dishes made by top chefs in their restaurants. You know, Gordon Ramsay made this really awesome recipe. I want that. Bloop. Teletransported. Once we purchase them, our 3D food printer will replicate them in a matter of seconds in the comfort of your home. Powdered food synthesizers can create simultaneous and changing snacks with 10 to 20 different flavors every time you take a bite. Is this bizarre? Is this blowing your mind? Is this kind of what you imagine even, 15, 20 years from now? That's not that long from now, guys. This happened after companies digitized every foodstuff in the world, making it possible to 3D print them. They created a digital food database that stored information about the flavor, color, shape, texture, and nutrients of all kinds of food. The user just had to select the type of food they wanted from the database, and their 3D printer created small cubes in the shape of that food, which were then injected with the corresponding flavors, colors, and nutrients, which begs the question, that's not food. That's food, as I noted in the title here on Jimmy Rants. Is this progress? I suppose from a convenience factor and from the cool technological advances factor, okay, yeah, but is it food in the traditional sense that so many of us believe in real food? Not even close. I don't want an egg that doesn't come from a chicken. I want a chicken egg. I don't want a steak that comes from lab-grown cow. I want a cow steak. This is going to be very, very interesting when we get to the point where this technology becomes more and more pushed to come to the culture. What will the real food community do? They're going to have a fight on their hands, I believe. Artificial intelligence became completely enmeshed in our lives and also in our kitchens. Each citizen is assigned a flavor predictive algorithm akin to your culinary DNA, which logs every memory and taste linked to food from your earliest childhood memory. Since it perfectly knows what you like, it can even anticipate your mood and instruct cooking devices to prepare the most appropriate dish. Everything you need is recorded in one single database. The few remaining restaurateurs have the same level of responsibility as doctors in terms of caring for their patrons' health. Restaurants used to cater to emotions instead of exclusively to their stomachs. Back then, they didn't just feed diners, they also were a setting for reconciliation, negotiation, conspiracy, love, intellectual gatherings, deep conversations, and long and indescribable, etc. Nowadays, remember 2038, most restaurants have become virtual. They still prepare dishes for you, but they send them to your home. They no longer have tables and chairs for people to sit down at and dine. The progress made in food preservation allows us to enjoy any menu from around the world, from the best cuisine to the cheekiest snacks, all in the comfort of your home. Any customer who still visits a restaurant in person finds a space full of sensors that track operations in the kitchen and the diner's movements. Most restaurants download their diner's food citizen score as well as their flavor predictive algorithm, remember the culinary DNA, as they walk through the door to obtain weight, height, dietary requirements, physical condition. Their applications will then provide personalized nutritional advice and recommend meal options. Oh, so if you walk in, it's like, all right, this person needs the vegetarian option. No, I came in for a steak. Yeah, well, you're getting the vegetarian option. I wonder if they could inject the vegetarian food with flavoring agents that would make it taste like meat, but then you're not getting the nutrition of the meat. And wow, this just gets convoluted really fast. Customers also provide a saliva sample so that the restaurant can cross-reference their genetic makeup against updated studies in order to let them know if they have a significant probability of a genetic predisposition to food intolerances, and also to inform the specific dietary contents of the perfect menu they will put together. I wonder if those studies, if they'll only allow randomized controlled clinical trials to be included and not these observational epidemiological studies. Just thinking out loud. Abundance coupled with artificial intelligence ability to anticipate your every decision has emptied your mind and lives of any concerns about food. But as a result, we have destroyed the pleasure of eating. We never get to lick our lips in anticipation again. So that's quite an imagined 2038 of what they think the food supply is going to look like. Lots of interesting food for thought, and I couldn't help but as I was reading through that, thinking, what's happening to real food? Is real food going to die? I can't imagine a world where you wouldn't have access to real whole foods that you want. Are they just going to eliminate chickens? Like, how are they going to prevent eggs from being laid? If chickens exist, eggs are going to get laid if chickens exist. What do they do with the dead animals? Because they eventually do die. All animals eventually do die. So what are they going to do with all these dead animals? Oh my God, we can't kill animals, but they died. Are we going to bury them and have little pastures full of like burial? Like, it's weird. Anyway, I like thought-provoking. That's what we do here on Jimmy Rants. Definitely want to see what you guys have to say. We're going to go here first to Instagram, then over to Facebook, finally over to Twitch. Thank you all for being here today on this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. See what you have to say. Nutrasclerosis says the correlation between beef and global warming is seriously effed up. Yes! Like so much of what they think raises greenhouse gases and thus warms up the planet, it's just so off. Like, there's plenty of evidence that proves or disproves that theory completely, and yet it's repeated over and over and over again. It's in all these documentaries, What the Health, Cowspiracy, all of this stuff that they put out there. And they just keep repeating that lie. I suppose they feel like if they repeat it often enough, people will believe it. But you're right. The correlation is not as strong as they're making it out to be. History will not be kind to this. No, I don't think so either, ketogenic pharmacist. Kat says, I don't care about vending machines, never use them and don't plan to. Well, that's true. And I would assume if they got away from, and obesity has been eradicated in the year 2038, as they imagined in this article, what are they getting from a vending machine anyway? Because if obesity has been eradicated, obviously you've gotten rid of sugary foods, right? Because obesity, sugar, processed foods, like you would think that would be eliminated. Interesting, they didn't say a whole lot about fast food in this reimagination of the food in the future. All right, thank you, Instagram. Let's pop over here now to Facebook. We'll come to Twitch next. Thank you guys all for being here today. What's up, Facebook? I feel like we all need to start homesteading, says Vicky. Yes, I have 15 backyard chickens. I've got a greenhouse back there. Currently, the greenhouse has nothing. I do have a plot of land up here that's about 20 foot by 20 foot that I can grow a garden in as well. So it's not hard to grow your own food and harvest your own animals. I would love to have some goats or ducks. I don't think I could have a cow back there, but I agree with you. I think homesteading certainly can help protect us from whatever future the food supply will be. Bev says this is also concerning. Well, it can be, or we can bucket, which is why I bring these kinds of things to you so that you can be aware of what's being said out there. Tara Lee says definitely a product of the 80s. Alf ate cats. Yes, he did. And there's some days he can come have my cats. I'll have my half of a grass-fed cow next week. Oh, that is awesome. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, Mandy. I would love to get a cow share. I used to have a farm local that I could drive to about 20 minutes away. but then they shut down about 8 years ago, and I haven't been able to find another one real close since then. And she would sell me all kinds of cow parts. Like I remember I tasted cow tongue for the first time. She's like, oh yeah, we just throw those away. So if you want a tongue, how about $2 for 2 of them? I was like, wow, that was cool. All right, thank you, Facebook. Let's pop over here now to Twitch. What's up, Twitch? See if we can get your comments in here. Come over to Twitch, everyone, says Southern Clean Living. Yes. Does the U.S. Cattle Association have much influence? No, they kind of, all these animal-based organizations, they just do the best they can, but they're fighting an uphill battle because there is this grand momentum. Remember at the very beginning, I was talking about how Bill Gates is investing in farmland and in these plant-based burgers. So they're not interested in these meat companies. They're trying to eradicate them. So if these organizations that are dedicated to supporting animal foods, no, they don't give them two looks. They just don't. Am I late? No, you're here. Welcome, welcome. Cariana says, I'm sorry, but I find that terrifying that Bill Gates has stated he's in favor of population control. He could leave that land barren and starve millions of people if he wanted to. He certainly could. And there are people that conspire that very thing that you just described. Marcus says, if Gates names his company Soylent Corporation, I'll have to start hunting and fishing again. Yeah. Again, people's skepticism about Gates and why he bought 250,000 acres of farmland in America. He's now the #1 farmer in America. A software billionaire is now the biggest farmer in America. Working on my hunting license now, says Grizz. Cool. I remember when predictions from the 50s were that we'd all be in flying cars and waited on by robots by now. I expect many of these predictions will not happen because they won't be economically feasible. Economics will be a big thing. Will the technology be where it needs to be to make these things happen? There's a lot of questions that go into some of these predictions. But again, as they said at the beginning, you can't get there unless you imagine it many years before you do it. So I think they're throwing a lot of stuff out there to see what sticks. I hope most of this doesn't stick because it ain't good if you're about real food. Are there things we can do to prevent it from happening? Yeah, buy into real food, be a homesteader, do all the things to take care of your own family and use real food as the way to do it. Southern Clean Living, I remember when the beef industry sued Oprah for bad-mouthing beef during the mad cow outbreak. Yeah, there's always been entities trying to shut down the animal food industry, which is kind of interesting right now. You've got the vegans who are very vocal in their opposition to using animals for food. But then you also have this carnivore movement out there, and keto, which a lot of us in the keto space promote animal foods. And paleo, same thing. It's kind of interesting. You have this dichotomy of voices out there. What the future of food is going to look like. I think it depends on a lot of who's in power to make decisions happen that could, facilitate and precipitate some of these things to happen. But guys, I thought this would be very interesting here today. I thought you would really enjoy what an imagined future of food looks like. And that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. Come follow me right here over on Instagram. I'm Jimmy Rants over there. Follow me Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Live is when we go live every single weekday. So thank you guys for being here. We also simulcast over on Facebook and Twitch. If you missed the live, you can watch it on the replay on IGTV over at Jimmy Rants. We also put the replay over on Twitch. If you download the Twitch app, follow Jimmy More Rants. All of you lovely people did do that, so thank you for that. It's becoming the go-to place. If you're tired of all the censorship and all the rest, you just want to come to a safe haven. Twitch seems to be the place for that. go download the app and follow Jimmy Rants. You can watch the replay there. This week, YouTube has me blocked and banned because I tried to upload a video on Saturday they didn't like, and so I am locked out until Saturday. Saturday, I will upload all the Jimmy Rants from this week, all on Saturday, so they'll be up there by Saturday. But of course, you can also watch them at jimmyrants.com. All right, tomorrow, you guys, I have another story about a celebrity, an actress named Jameela Jamil. And Jameela doesn't like the ketogenic diet. And she's tired of people that are celebrities and influencers talking about it. And she has some very interesting comments to say about why she doesn't like it. And she thinks she has a little bit of credibility in this because she's gone on a lot of diets. Let's see what she has to say, and we'll analyze it all tomorrow here on Jimmy Rants. All right, guys, that's it for now. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.